Okay. All right, welcome everyone to another recording broadcast of Worldwide Academy Training Services, where we are touching upon, and I say just touching upon because we have great depth that we can go to in all of these topics. We are touching upon topics in the emergency preparedness field and the other areas as well that we are teaching in some medical emergency things. And I am with my brother and friend Thurston Gill Jr. here with me, who really brings it every time we sit down to discuss some of these things, because honestly, he is out of the two of us, he is definitely the expert. I am not. I am just the one who is trying to, help get the word out. There's so much going on these days. There's many things that we need to be prepared for and many things that we need to consider. So welcome, Thurston. Thank you again for taking time out of your very busy day. You guys, I think I want you to realize that, this Worldwide Academy Training Services at this point is not a something that both of us or either of us do completely full time. We have other responsibilities and other jobs that we're doing, just like you all are, trying to, to thrive in this world, not just survive, but to thrive. And so I really do appreciate the time that Thurston puts into this. And we appreciate you guys that join us. We really hope and pray that this information will get to the people that really need to hear it and to see it. And, this is not just for us to feed you. Of course, we're giving you information, but we really desire to gather together a community that will share their knowledge, their experiences in these areas, because we cannot survive or thrive in this world without one another. So we really are hoping to build a community that can share in these things with us. So in saying on that, please help us to build this community. If you're watching, like, subscribe, and share in YouTube. If you're on Facebook, please invite your friends to join us, to like our Worldwide Academy Training Services page. We have Worldwide Academy Training Services Emergency Preparedness private group, where we share information on different tools and things that we may need. And we really appreciate when you share things, because like I said, we can't do all this by ourselves. We all have families, and things that we do as well. So I know that's kind of long-winded, but I really do hope and pray that you would help us to share. And I know a few of you are really doing that, but there are others of you that may be quietly watching. That's fine, but please consider getting involved in some way. We are in a period of time where we are rebuilding. I feel like we're in another transitional period for Worldwide Academy, and we are forming some partnerships with people in our communities. And so it's a slow process, but we need your help to do that. So please consider joining us. And if you do feel a tug in your heart to please, to donate towards this organization, we are a nonprofit organization, and we really would be grateful for the help in that area. Because again, it takes the funds to expand. It takes the funds to, get us to our classes. It takes the funds to rent spaces. So if you do feel in your heart that this would be beneficial, you can go to our website, worldwideacademytrainingservices.org. You have to spell it all out. And right on the front homepage, there's a donate button. So anyway, whew, long-winded introduction today. Thank you for those of you who do that. We are going to discuss strategic tactical decision making in crisis situations. That's a mouthful, Thurston.
Gotta come up with shorter titles.
I got it out. So there we go. Thanks for joining me again today. Appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. This topic basically came out of a discussion, as many of our topics do, between Donna and myself concerning my concerns about how many of us that are involved or desire to be involved in the emergency management or emergency preparedness aspects of life and living, but we have not devoted enough time and effort in understanding and embracing the fact that during a crisis, our ability to make decisions, make strategic and tactical decisions are going to be challenged. And because of that fact, there are certain things we need to be doing to make sure that our ability or our skills in that area are not compromised. Under pressure, under the pressure of crisis, under the pressure of emotional overload or traumatic overload of an event occurs, even the most seasoned of us are challenged to keep it together enough to be able to make the right decisions, and many times making these decisions with very little information instantly. And so these are areas of concern that I have that we really need to pay attention to now. There's a statement that I've heard for decades, and I may have even heard it when I was a kid, but it's something that I was told or I heard, and like many people, I embraced the same idea that nobody knows how you're going to respond in an emergency. Now, that seems to make somewhat kind of sense, but over my years of experience in dealing with crisis situations, I've come to learn, because somebody taught me, well, you better doggone know or have an idea of what you're going to do when an emergency occurs. And that's why we have drills. That's why we practice, so that we have something to grasp or put to wrap our heads or our minds around to be able to get us through these situations. Making that statement and standing by it, and many times is a cop-out for some of us. So that because we're overwhelmed by the idea of something happening, or we don't know what to do, this statement kind of like flies out. Oh, nobody really knows what they're going to do in a situation like that. Well, you better have an idea of what you're going to do. Because honestly, I can tell you from experience, you probably tell from experience yourselves, the time to make the right decisions, to make those right decisions quickly, is not the time when you are going through the situation. I mean, you have to know or have an idea what you're going to do. The crisis is not the time to figure it out. The crisis is not the time to take out a tape measure and an angler and a ruler and a calculator and try to figure out, okay, what's the best? No, that's not the time. That's not the time. And I guarantee you, if you don't have in your mind an idea of what you're going to do in certain situations, you're probably going to freeze and be able to do nothing.
Yeah, I think that, again, that goes back to our whole mindset.
Yes.
Having that mindset of being prepared, and I'm just, as you're talking, I'm thinking of myself who learned, and this is it's kind of interesting how I came about to be more emergency, to have that mindset. I was, as a really, really, really shy kid. And there were, you know, I think I learned along the way. You would never have believed that, you know, I was a kid who just, wouldn't talk. I mean, I didn't want to talk in front of people. I never, oh my gosh, I was so nervous in school and everything. But through my experiences, and I guess, you know, maturity and things like that, I came to a place where, and this can also, it's good for this mindset, but it also can be, you know, kind of a negative, that I would plan out everything in my head. It's good for what, you know, when you're when you're talking or before you talk to think before we speak, right? But, and I must say, I don't always do that now, but I did learn to do that, like to think about circumstances before, and then to think about, okay, how am I going to react? What am I going to say? You know, and so there's a balance of that. But I was thinking about that as you were talking about it, because I'm thinking about the circumstances in my own personal life where I'm sure there will be, you know, there could be an emergency situation, and how I'm going to react, how I'm going to handle that, what am I going to do? And I understand what you're saying, like, you know, for people, I think too that people will have, you know, when we don't have that mindset of what I'm going to do in an emergency situation, or thinking, oh, I don't know how I'm going to react, is also not only a cop out, but it's a fear.
Yes,
I don't want to have to do anything because I don't, you know,
exactly.
I don't know if I'm going to hurt the person more or myself, or I don't know if I'm going to do the right thing, then I'll be sued, you know, so there's all that that goes
Yes,
through your mind.
there is. And
Yeah.
and that's a fair that's a fair argument. Um, we have a we meaning what we do here at Worldwide Academy Training Services is one of our objectives is to be able to educate and train people so that we can release them to not only benefit themselves and their families, but also to teach somebody else. And
Exactly.
the the idea is that we are actually working against a system that has been designed to make us dependent upon it for our very existence.
Mm.
And uh, that is not the way that cultures um, used to exist. Yes, there was communities and communities networked together to do for themselves and to work together as a community, but this idea of this infrastructure designed in such a way so that it takes care of everybody so that they're relieved of the responsibility of providing for themselves and protecting themselves, I believe, in my opinion, I strongly believe is detrimental.
Mm.
Because when that system, by the way, which is extremely complicated um, and can be easily influenced to favor one group over another, which, because it's so complicated, has so many uh, areas where it can easily fail, which it does,
Mhm.
in crisis in particular. We don't want to be in a situation where, because we depended upon the system to do certain things for us, and in a crisis, when the system is not able to do it, then what?
Mhm.
Then what? Now, we really have to get to a place, and I praise God for the opportunity to be part of this effort to reverse the trend. I believe has caused a lot of harm to us physically, spiritually, and psychologically, and our total dependence upon somebody else taking care of us, somebody else protecting us. And we will we will literally lay down and wait for somebody to do that before we even raise our hands, some of us, to help ourselves. And that's horrible. That's horrible. And what I know, I can't keep it to myself, for reasons like that. We really have to be in a place where we're able to educate people to the truth of their responsibility for their own survival. But having said that, I it is a challenge, especially when people are comfortable with allowing people to do things for themselves. It's a place of comfort and security, and we're basically, what we're doing is challenging people's comfort and security, and that's a difficult place to be in. Yeah. But I think that once we experience certain things, and that's why I encourage people to read and look at other other people's encounters with disasters, other situations where people survived or didn't survive in catastrophic situations, what we can learn from those. We don't have to experience everything to know something. And so I encourage people to, when they see a disaster, an article about a disaster that has occurred somewhere, first and foremost, I want to encourage people to have compassion for those that are going through it. But in addition to that, we need to analyze what you couldn't prevent the tragedy from happening, or if you could, if there was a reason, if there was something that could have been done to prevent the tragedy from happening, yes, we want to look at that, definitely. But in addition to that, we want to look at what was done right and what could have been done better in this particular situation. What could I do if this happened to me or my family? And so we have to get to that place where, like you were talking about, you develop that mindset of what then? As a kid, I don't know where it began to happen, but I always thought in terms of consequences. Still didn't make the right judgment, but at least I considered the consequences. But we have to do this thing in our mind. If this were to happen, then what? Okay. And when we do that, what then kind of practice, I think we end up being ahead of the game, that much ahead of the game, in terms of having something to fall back on when crisis hit. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, and I think, going back to that mindset of, and especially here in the West, that we're going to be taken care of. We have these things in our community we're going to be taken care of, so we don't really feel like we need to learn too much. We don't need to practice too much. And what happens, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking that our ability in the middle of a crisis, our ability to actually think is gone, because because we're just follow.
Yes.
And in some cases, it might not be the best choice to follow those who are leading, and could lead to great tragedies. And so our ability to actually even think, in that kind of a situation, and I think that's what we're trying to get people to understand, think before, again, before you act. Think about this, and because we're in such an emergency or crisis situation, and I know that for me, it just will just go, so
I think one of the most important things that we need to start with, in my mind, is first developing again our pack mentality. When I say our, I mean the human nature in terms of relating and living as a pack. It is distinctly different from a herd mentality.
Right.
Herds are looked upon as prey by predators.
Mm,
And being in a herd does have a sense of comfort and security.
mm-hmm.
I mean, the numbers that are of others that are like me around me make me feel safe. And even if there is danger, hey, check it out, I'm still safe because as long as I'm not the weakest person in the group or the slowest, the predator's not going to get me. All I have to do is be able to run faster and further than the weakest and slowest person behind me, and I'm good.
Mm,
And that's the way herds think. They stampede, and when they stampede, they just drive in one direction. Nobody knows what that direction is. They're just going with the flow. And many times it leads to tragedy. It's a tragedy. As opposed to a pack. Pack is more organized. It's more self-sufficient. It's more cooperative. It complements each other. It works together. It protects each other.
mm.
And so those qualities are a lot different, a lot different. And there's no wonder why packs are usually the predators and the herds are usually the prey.
Mm. That's a good
So,
analogy. I really like that.
but it takes some developing,
Yeah.
especially in urban environments. It's in some urban environments it's hard. In some urban environments, some neighborhoods are really tight. Nothing goes on in that particular part of the neighborhood unless somebody knows about it. Something happens within that neighborhood. Uh, there are people there that help support each other, so on and so forth. But there are other neighborhoods that are not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Rural areas, you have some of the same issues, but also there's also a sense of community there too. But I think it's like you can't even just say urban versus suburban versus rural anymore. It's
No.
like almost in too many situations where every man for themselves, every man, woman, and child for themselves, and it's like it's counterproductive.
Mm.
Um, and when I hear people that are in the mindset of preparedness and are in those communities, and their whole objective is to be separated from everybody else so that I have all my stuff for myself and my family, and then that's it. And that's scary. It's scary to me because once you are targeted by a predator, you're on your own. You don't have any community. You
Mm.
will be overwhelmed because predators usually, in crisis situations anyway, like that, predators usually roam in packs,
Mm.
and it just doesn't go well. I'm finding out the Hurricane Katrina, that event is a treasure trove of not only tragedy but also a master class of learning.
Mm.
And over the years, I hear it's coming out more and more different stories of people that have survived that terrible crisis,
Mm-hmm.
and it really paints a true picture of what happens in situations like these. And the more and more I hear, the more and more I'm convinced that it's the wrong idea to depend entirely on any government or any organization or agency entirely, unless that's just your situation. Because I don't want to say uh, depending upon or receiving help from these agencies is wrong or anything like that. Some people are, because of their situation, that's where they are.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that the total dependence, I think, I find it very difficult to believe that a lot of us uh, have to be totally dependent. There are certain things we can do for ourselves. And the more we can do for ourselves, relieve those agencies from having to tend to us and tend to some other people that are not so well off.
Mm-hmm.
So it just I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just agreeing, you know.
I'm sorry. The central light went off in the room. I'm sorry, everybody.
That's okay. So I gotta do something there and
Put
show.
my hand to the
That's okay.
but yeah, I think that's a good start, is understanding what a pack mentality is and
Mhm.
start developing your pack. It could be family, extended members of the family, your neighborhood, community, your church, your job, whatever the case.
Mhm.
Start developing that pack and understand what are what are our goals? What are our goals? What are we doing this for? Be clear about that.
Mhm.
Okay, we're into preparedness, but what does that mean? What are you trying to accomplish? That needs to be clear to everybody involved. So there's no misunderstanding. There's no waste of money and time and resources in a direction that you didn't intend to go to, a direction you didn't intend to go into anyway.
Mhm.
So that needs to be clear. And once we determine why are we doing this, okay, what's the best way to do it?
Right.
What's the best way to do it? And you need help. All of us need help in
Mhm.
this area. See, when I used to work in, well, I'm sorry, when I work in security, and especially when I used to work in executive protection, um, these organizations and individuals had the resources to pay for us to provide these services for them.
Mhm.
So basically, they did not have to do for themselves because they had security staff and other supports to do these things for them. Um, I see that there's a need for us as individuals in our community who don't have those resources to be able to have the same quality of care or as close to it as possible without the resources that these corporations or individuals have, and we were able to do a lot when we do it together.
Right.
And so that's what we're going to try to get to. No, first of all, know why we're doing this. Know why you're doing this. Why?
Mhm.
And when you're clear about why, okay, then what's the best way? What's the best way to do this? And so when a crisis does occur, then you're going to just focus um, on just what I call the six rights,
Mhm.
in decision making. Um, and basically, what it boils down to is these 6 points need to be covered. Uh, we have to have the right solution for and by the right person, either the right person providing a solution or the right person receiving a solution.
Mhm.
Right place at the right time in the right amount in the right way. And I feel that if we adhere to that principle of the six rights, right solution, right person, right place, right time, the right amount, in the right way, we're going to make pretty good decisions.
Yes, and I think this is a good time to just remind people, because I wanted to do this anyway. Uh, Here we go. Um, your little book here. it's right next to me. The Philoso Devotional Engineering the Warrior Priest for Dark Times. This, guys, this is such a good little book. I mean, it's packed. It's such an example of like small thing, or what is it? Big things come in small packages. This is, it's thin. It's what? How many pages is this? It's like, I don't know, what is it? I should put my glasses on, like 57 pages, whatever. Written by Thurston, and he does talk about, you talk about this, I just had it, I just lost the page, about the 6 rights. In fact, you mentioned that several times throughout this book. This is my second time going through the book, and I just, as somebody else said, it's snackable. You don't have to sit down and read it every day or every night, whatever. I pick it up whenever in the morning, whenever I feel led to do it, and then it is a devotional, but it just, again, helps us to think and to kind of, okay, how does this relate to my life, and how so filled with so many good things, so many good words of wisdom and practical things as well. So you guys, if you don't have this yet, you need to get it, and it is available at Barnes and Nobles, at Amazon. You can ask us for them. We can get you some. And I don't know where, at the Phoenix, Parisian Phoenix Publishing. And I know that Thurston's going to write some more, but really this is an amazing book. And like I said, you do write about that several times in here. I like those, the 6 rights, to think about that. Everything is perfect if it lines up.
Exactly, if it lines up,
And
and
it's all across the board, like through our whole, everything in our life, right?
absolutely. And I want to get back to your statement about learning to think again. Is we have to start developing this piece of critical thinking in a crisis that has to be practiced. It's not something that is going to come by osmosis, unless, of course, your experience or upbringing has you constantly dealing with crisis on a regular basis. Then it'll come natural to you. But for many people, it doesn't come natural. Like I said, it's a matter of retraining, because you didn't have to do it before. You depended upon somebody else doing it. And especially kids, children and families, the sooner we introduce them to the idea of making decisions in crisis, the better it is for them, because you can't be there all the time. And when you're not, you want to at least know, first and foremost, by faith, that God is going to protect them, but also He's given them the wisdom, and they've had the practice to be able to make the right decisions in a given situation.
That's reminding me of a story of something that my grandson, my almost 10-year-old grandson, shared with us the other day about, and I think, like you said, that the parents have to, or some parental authority in their lives, guardian, need to have this mindset to be able to pass this on and to help the children. But he shared with us, so we got on the topic of lockdowns at school, and he shared with us about how he found a really good hiding place in his classroom, that was not pointed out by the teacher, was not one of the places the teacher said to go to. And we have our thoughts about that whole procedure, whatever, but he found this little closet, and he and his friend got in there, and they were having a drill, and the teacher comes along and finds him and says, wow, that's a really good place to hide. But my point is that he's thinking already at 10 years old. I mean, and even that's, should be old enough.
Yes.
especially in the world that they're growing up in and being in
Absolutely.
school,
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. He's not only think he's thinking tactically,
yes,
and that's important because uh, there are people that are thinking, but their solutions are not good. I mean,
right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
And
And I
it's
had, then I had the opportunity to share some things with him. And then, I said, and my high school granddaughter was, she's actually the one that started the conversation about, you know, not having any lockdowns yet in the first week of school, which was good, which is sad because,
yeah, isn't that crazy?
and I shared with them the story about, hey, you know what we had to do when we were kids, way back in the day, we had to go down into the basement in the bomb shelter. And they're like, what? And as and again, we were children. All we knew what to do was to be led down there by our teacher when this sound went off or whatever they told us to do. But once we were down there, all we did was stand there and wait for it to be out. I mean, over, which, okay. But what if there was no
Yes,
what if this, then do that?
yes,
We just,
exactly.
so again, it was that herd mentality that just follow the leader.
Mhm.
And again, we were children, so that's also a balance in that, not to frighten them and all that. But
It
yeah.
is, and I and I can take this conversation.
I know.
It's just deep for me. I can go on for hours concerning everything that you just said,
Yeah.
but the fact is that we have to learn to think tactically, and we have to be our tactical curve for making decisions have to be very short, and they can be shortened by practice, by doing drills, and
Tell me,
to
what do you mean by our tactical, what is it? Our curve has to be shortened?
yeah, yes. What I mean by that is our ability to uh, to implement the six rights needs to be short in a
Okay.
tactical situation. Okay, needs to be short. We don't have a whole lot of time in a crisis.
Right. Okay.
If we're sitting and planning, then that's great. We have all the time in the world to do that.
Hmm.
In a crisis situation, from a tactical standpoint, these decisions need to be made sometimes instantaneously.
Hmm.
Somebody approaches me with a knife, um, I have to make the right decision at the right time quickly.
Right. Right.
Okay? And so that's what I mean. So
Okay.
if I take a person, the average person off the street, and I put them in a knife defense class, and I were to simulate having a knife and going up to them, and I say, do whatever you need to do to reduce your chances of being cut to death
Mhm.
by this knife. That first encounter, that first sparring experience is going to be a hot mess for that individual because they don't have the training, they don't have the
Mhm.
experience. I put pressure on them that they've never probably had pressure on them before. They're sweating bullets and so on and so forth. Okay,
Mhm.
not to mention, I stabbed them to death with my little fake knife.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
but as they begin training, as they begin practicing, as they begin going through scenarios where, again, that pressure's put upon them,
Mhm.
their tactical curve, which was way out left before, has been shortened dramatically. Their confidence has been built up.
Mm.
That they have some skills to go with the attitude, okay, and they literally in that area of their lives, they're a different person.
Mm.
Particular area in their life, they are a different person. They're not the same person that came to that class that first day.
Right. Confidence in being able to handle that situation.
Exactly.
And then using that as a stepping stone to the next,
You got it.
creating a situation,
Now, does that person know, going back to that statement, does that person know how they're going to respond in an emergency situation like that? Not exactly, but they have a very good idea how they're going to respond. They have a very
Right.
good idea.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean.
Okay.
We and really, the shorter our tactical curve is, the better, and the more ahead of the curve of a crisis puts us in a better position as well. Meaning that we have to be in a position where we're not always reacting to certain things.
Mm.
What I mean by that is many of us have developed a mindset, what I call a crisis mindset, meaning that everything in our life operates according to crisis.
Mm.
Until it becomes a crisis, we don't pay attention to it and deal with it. And that's not a way to function either. Uh,
That's a good point.
Crisis events trigger a biological and psychological reaction that, if left left in that state continuously or repeatedly over a period of time, it causes damage more than it does good. And we need those biological and psychological reactions to occur, because it helps us be able to run faster,
Yeah, but not,
longer,
yeah.
so forth. But being constant, it's not good. It's
Mm.
not good. And some of our lifestyles are geared toward crisis.
That's why I always think about those who are in crisis management and those who are crisis response. Our EMTs and police officers, security. I mean, if they're always, especially EMTs, right? Like
Uh,
what effect that it must have on them. I really do hope, and I'm not, I don't, I don't know, have a lot of knowledge in that area, but I do hope that they have some piece of that their training and whatever that will address that.
well, they're not the only ones that need it. We all need it. As a matter of fact, that completes the cycle of emergency management, is recovery. And that's
Yes.
the part that we pay the least attention to.
Mm.
Recovery. We have to do
Mm.
whatever it needs to be done to make ourselves well after this situation has occurred,
Yeah.
because it has affected us.
Mm.
It has affected us. And so what do we need to do? In particular with disasters, these folks, I mean, for some of them, on a regular shift is more than enough. But then you have a disaster where the pressure is almost constant,
Yeah.
hours and days. No, there's no way they can sustain that without managing it.
Mm-hmm.
And many of us don't have the skills. And yes, a lot of first responders do not have the skills to manage it. That's why there are many that are addicted to alcohol and other drugs. That's why many of them commit suicide. That's why many of them have other behavior issues that come out, because they haven't dealt with what they have to manage on the inside. So the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
But they're not the only ones. Like I said, we all have to learn that, and we all need to make sure that we include that in the entire preparedness or emergency management cycle. It's
Mhm.
preparedness, it's readiness, it's response, and it's also recovery.
Yeah,
Recovery it just encompasses a whole lot.
yeah. Okay.
Well, so that's I I think that pretty much covers what we wanted to cover today, unless there's any questions. Uh, I wanted to make sure we definitely dealt with that statement, which really goes through me every time I hear it, is, oh, you don't know what you're going to do in an emergency. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do in an emergency. Well, doggone it, you better figure out what you
Yeah,
may do. You can't wait until it happens to figure it out.
yeah, which is, again, start with the mindset, then move to action. What are you going to do
Yes,
to
exactly.
prepare for that? And that's what we're all about. And I'm glad that you brought up those three words that are our three key tag words or whatever: educate, train, and release. That's really our whole focus. We want to give people the education that they need, and then the knowledge that they need, the training that goes along with that, and then release to do, because that's the only way that something grows and expands, is to release so that they can then share with others and be part of the whole, you know.
Can we end with a scenario? Because this is a scenario
Sure.
that we actually spoke about in relation to this topic. There are individuals that, and rightly so, that in their preparedness planning, they have firearms for protection, for
Mhm.
protecting themselves, their family, and also their resources, which makes good sense. The scenario is you have there's a crisis event occurring where our infrastructure in your area has broken down, and it has been broken down for days now, entering into the second week or so. And people are at the place where they're desperate, particularly those that are not prepared. They're desperately figuring out how to find something to eat and drink. You have a small garden on your property that you keep protected from the animals and also from people coming encroaching upon your property to take what you have. One day, you go out to the yard and you notice that there are people in your yard taking or picking your vegetables without your permission. So you go out there with your shotgun and your tactical rifle with your tactical gear, and you challenge them, and they turn out to be kids.
Mm.
What are you going to do? Because you told everybody that if somebody comes and takes my stuff, I'm going to shoot them.
Mm.
You got some 10, 12, and 6-year-olds in your garden taking your food. What are you going to do? And the first thing that comes to our mind is what? I don't know what I'll do.
I don't know what I would do. Well, for me, I think it's like, it depends on the individual, what their personal situation is. Am I alone? Do I have a family? Do I have children in here of my own? What are my spiritual beliefs? And
Yep, all those things.
all those things
Bag of chips. Yep.
come together, yeah, for a decision.
Let me add another equation. Let me add another equation.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Mhm. Well, I'll get to that one, but
Oh,
there's another step. with those kids are a group of adults that basically told them to go in the garden and get the vegetables. So they are out on the periphery providing guidance and direction for those kids that they sent in your garden to take your stuff. Now what are you going to do? Because some people had sat down and with the first scenario I gave and pretty much came up with some type of idea as to how they would respond. But now I just threw a monkey wrench in it. We have adults. Okay. And then somebody will probably have some solution for that. I'm going to add one more monkey wrench. Suppose as you come out of your home and you confront these kids about being in your garden, taking your fruits and vegetables, and you realize that the 6-year-old, the 10-year-old, and the 12-year-old have firearms. Now what are you going to do? So these are all questions. These are all scenarios that are not far outside of the scope of what can happen. And I just got those scenarios from actual events that have occurred during situations of crisis and disasters. These are things we must think about. These are things we have to expose ourselves, or situations we have to expose ourselves to so that we can begin thinking about it.
Right. Wow. And those are some tough questions.
Oh, definitely.
I don't like them at all.
I don't either. I don't either. I don't either.
I don't. And especially the food part of it.
Yes.
You know, because I actually listened to a program last night, which, you know, these people made a really good point about the whole smash and grab thing, this new movie coming out. You know, I'm just going to keep this generic, so I don't want to timestamp it in any way, but and that, you know, people that a lot of time they're taking things. Why are they smashing and grabbing and taking the sneakers and not the food? Because if they, you know, well, they're selling the shoes for the food. Well, why don't they then just take the food instead of taking the sneakers? You know, that kind of mentality of gangs that are out there doing these kinds of things, you know. It's really interesting. It's yeah. So we're leaving you all with some hard things to think about. And things that we don't like. I mean, I don't. I mean, some people will have their answer right away. They, you know, just boom.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
their.
much, yeah.
That's it. You know,
that-
personality, that and the way that that's it. I already know.
Yeah.
You're not getting my food. You know.
Exactly.
But then
Exactly.
there's others of us who have a hard
Have
time.
to reconcile some things in our hearts and our minds.
Yes. Yeah.
There needs to be, and that's the point. There needs to be a reconciliation of our hearts and our minds and making tough decisions in crisis, because it is overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming if not managed. You have to manage it. You have to manage it. During a crisis, that's the only thing you can manage, is how you're going to respond, how you're going to think. That's the only thing you can manage for the most part. Crisis already happened.
I'm going to make sure I have some food, some of those, what do you call emergency food rations that I'm looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the other thing
If
too.
you need, you know, in some of those instances, go ahead, take it. I don't need it.
Yeah. And it's and the thing that's crazy to me is, and you know, and again, it shows how people don't think tactically. They'll fight and kill you over the food, but we'll leave the water.
Oh yeah, because we want the food.
but you'll die quicker without the water.
Exactly. I had that conversation with somebody the other day. Like, the water is the thing, right? And
Yes. And the more food you eat, the more water you're going to need.
yeah, yeah,
But they'll fight and kill over the food, but leave the water.
right. So give us just an ending statement, wrap it up.
Well, I pray that if nothing else, we've succeeded in provoking you to think, to have a framework or a platform from which to think from, so that not that you make perfect decisions, because this is not going to happen. We can only hope for the best decision at those particular circumstances, and then we'd have to live with the consequences of it. But
Right.
a decision we have to make, and we can no longer depend upon people to make these decisions for us when we're capable of making them, or we can become capable of making them ourselves. And so we're here to help support you, but we can't do it for you.
Mm. Yes. Well, thank you again. This is lots to think about, you guys. And thank you again, Thurston, for wow, it's like every time you bring a different topic, it's I wonder how, like, what are we going to talk about here, but you got it. So thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said before, like, subscribe, and share on YouTube, like our Facebook pages. Please get the word out. We are reaching more of the worldwide academy training services, and we are going to be working on more online things for our friends that are outside of our local area, but also working on things in our local area. But we are starting to reach some countries that people are dropping in. Our website's worldwideacademytrainingservices.org, and
Also,
yeah, we are definitely reaching some people in other countries. I want you to just continue to please share and comment below, please comment below, and let us know if there is a particular topic that you would like us to cover. And stay safe, keep preparing, keep thinking. We hope that you keep thinking, and that you that you help one another. So educate. Once educate, train, and release others. So, all right, everybody, we'll see you on the next one.
thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Take care. Thanks, Thurston.